afternoon. We're going to call the Board of Adjustment to order. First, let me announce all decisions of the Board are final. If there's anyone aggrieved by the decision of this Board, they may appeal Circuit Court within 15 days of the Board's decision. Also, no permits or license can be issued until that 15-day appeal period is expired or no appeal has been filed. For information regarding the Board's decision or an appeal to Circuit Court, the Office of Land Use Administration will be your contact. If you will, as you come to the podium, address your questions to the Board, not to others in the audience or to the staff. And if you will, make sure that you got electronic devices, you turn them off or silent so we don't have any disturbance, and that as well for the Board. Unless we find that it becomes an issue, we'll be somewhat liberal with the time, but usually 5 minutes is the limitation per speaker. All right, let me first call roll. And we'll start with Mr. Golden.
Here.
Mr. Milling.
Here.
Mr. Burrows. Here. Mr. Metcalf. Here. Mr. Coleman. Okay, he's not here yet. Mr. Davis. Here. And I'm William Guess. And we have a quorum. I don't believe any of the members are recusing themselves as of today, so we'll should have a sufficient number of votes to either approve or disapprove a motion. All right, and we'll go in order. That's all right. All right, application 6101, Pan American Engineers. Okay, if you'll come down to the podium, give us your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Ron Bordlaw, and I'm with Pan American Engineers. We're here representing Murphy Oil USA, Inc., 1717 Jackson Street, Alexandria, Louisiana. And our proposal here is for a variance to the minimum 3 signs and also to the area of a sign on a wall. And in this case, it's a canopy. On the canopy fascia, we'd like to advertise price signs. We're on a corner of Airport and University Avenue. And I think everybody has a rendering there. I have a larger one here if we need to pass it around, if there's any questions. But we're proposing 2 freestanding signs, 1 pylon sign on Airport. On University Avenue, it's a monument sign. I think these 2 sign elevations both meet with the ordinance. The canopy signs were proposed to advertise in all directions. More importantly is to the grocery store. That Publix we're on I guess an outlot of Publix. So this would be for the customers that are exiting the store. They could be able to see the price before they get to their vehicle, be able to fuel up before exiting onto a public street. So we'd like to advertise in all directions at this 4-way intersection to traffic to give them enough time to make a decision, make a turn, if they're going to purchase fuel, and also to the Publix customers. So that is an overall view of what we're requesting. There's the short side of the canopy is where we exceed the 30% that's required. So, and that's the unleaded and the diesel fuels. So I'm here if anybody has any questions about the application or
Okay.
any concerns.
Any questions of the Board for the applicant's rep?
I've got a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Miller.
Looking at the aerial that's outlined, y'all are taking up the entire site, correct? Because the aerial that's outlined in yellow looks like it's not, but.
Yes, we are taking up the whole lot. I don't know why it looks like it's not to scale, the yellow outline, but if you can imagine that whole grassed, earthen, unpaved lot, yes, we are taking up the whole thing.
Which matches the site plan that's in our package.
Correct. The site
Okay.
plan is correct. We have internal access to Publix parking lot. You can see there on the north and the east, southeast, and northwest corners access is internal to their parking lot. So no direct connection to any public street. And where they have the red circles is where we're advertising price in all directions. 2 of them are freestanding signs on the major streets. The other is on the canopy.
Can you talk through just kind of each of those signs? So you've got a pylon sign. I didn't see a detail on that. So that pylon sign on the Airport Boulevard sign is,
The Airport Boulevard sign is the one on the rendering that's all the way to the right, lower right corner,
okay.
where you have the red unleaded fuel, and there's a diesel price below it, and there's a little blue sign that says it's non-ethanol product.
How tall is that?
I'm sorry?
How tall is that sign?
I think it's 35 feet.
The monument sign, Jeremy, is just to the left of that same drawing.
I just can't read any of the dimensions or
Yeah,
anything.
it's too small.
I'm sorry, they've changed the guy who's doing these signs for them. I did have difficulty too, and I apologize for that. I can have this redone, but the monument sign, I think, is 8 feet tall.
Okay, and so then on the canopy, how many of those are price changers or?
If you're asking about the type of sign, they're basically a scrolling sign. It's digital I mean, it is an electronic sign because it's an electronic scrolling, but it only scrolls when the price changes, which is sometimes not every day. But, so it's nothing that blinks or flashes, or I've never seen them change. I guess they changed, price could change during the day, but it just scrolls that one numeral, which it may go from 216 to 217 over the course of a day, to something to that nature, but it's not something that's, would, I guess you would catch with
Right.
the naked eye. It just scrolls to change the numeral, so nobody actually has to physically go out and move it with a
Right.
pole.
But Bert, so all of the signs they're requesting on the canopy are price changers. The Murphy Express isn't even included in this, correct?
Yeah, it is also including the Murphy Express signage in terms of calculating the amount of area.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Metcalf.
and I think maybe Mr. Milling was asking this as well, but you're proposing price signs on the facing airport, facing south, facing north, and also facing east to the Publix. Is that correct?
And west. It's on the canopy. We're asking for all four directions, and on the two major streets, the two freestanding signs.
And your contention is that people are going to have trouble identifying that it's a gas station and what your prices are? If you
I don't think they'll have trouble identifying that it's a fueling station.
I don't think so
but
either.
When it comes to the price size, the freestanding signs have larger numerals. The canopy price signs are a little smaller, but the canopy is 14 to 18 foot high, so it comes from a different perspective. And if you come from, if you're eastbound on Airport, the roadway changes in elevation.
It does.
There's a significant drop there. So that's why we're normally, if we have freestanding signs, we would need less canopy signage, but it was just decided in this to propose that. I'd say this is similar to I came to y'all with a site in Tillman's Corner, and we removed the Murphy Express signage, and that's something we'll still sacrifice to advertise price, but if the board feels it's not necessary to advertise in all four directions, we would have a first priority of having the freestanding signs, because they're easily viewable by the passerbys, and then reduce whatever it is we had to on the canopy.
Right
But-
now, it looks like the price signs on the canopy are actually larger than the face of the canopy. Is that correct, Bert? It looks like it extends below. Doesn't it?
It appears that they do in the picture. Our main concern would be whether or not it extends above, not below.
Well, I guess my question is,
They are taller than what appears
yeah,
the canopy.
the cabinets are larger than the face of the canopy.
There's two different sizes on the canopy. One does not exceed the height of the fascia, and one does.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's two sizes.
Did you know that,
Well,
Bert? Because that's an issue as well.
It's hard to tell, I guess, just by looking at the rendering, but
Okay. I'm not speaking for the board, but personally, I think it is obscenely excessive, given where it is, and especially since that is the corridor that invites people to Mobile. And if the board feels this way, I may suggest to you that you need to start thinking about what's important to you. Because the chances of all these price signs and 2 freestandings may be pretty slim.
and we didn't just make this decision just to throw all of this on here. We approached the intersection from, north and south on University and east and west on Airport and said, well, these signs, there is some landscaping that's within that intersection that sort of blocks the views, and then there's
Not
the signal
for a
poles.
35-foot tall sign.
Not for,
Not for a 30-foot tall sign, there's nothing going to be in the way of it. See, when you're coming eastbound, the elevation starts to drop a little bit. So if your sign's here, you're going to be seeing it, and then you're going to come down a little bit, and then as you're coming west, you're going to be looking up and looking up at that sign.
yeah, I wouldn't argue with that,
Yeah.
no. You are
And-
correct, that's
and-
easily visible than the canopy
Right,
signs.
and then the canopy sign facing Publix, you say that's just for the people coming out of Publix, pretty much.
That's solely for that purpose.
Okay, all right,
Any-
that's
Go
all
ahead,
I
I'm
have.
sorry.
That's all I have, thank you.
Any further questions of the board? How many of these signs actually have the logo on them?
We have two branding signs. Well, I'm sorry. There's a small one on each freestanding sign, and then there's the front and rear of the canopy that has Murphy Express, which is the brand.
Okay, and none of the pylon or the freestanding, right?
Correct. The pylon and the monument sign are the two freestanding signs, and they both have Murphy Express in small letters.
So there's 6 total signs that have Murphy on them somewhere.
If you consider in the front and back,
I'm counting
there's
total.
6 front and back, yes, sir.
Okay. All right, any other questions of the board for the applicant? Okay, anyone else in favor of the application? Anyone in opposition today? All right, discussion of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for staff.
Yes, please.
Bert, the freestanding's not, well, let's just clarify. They're allowed 1 freestander. Okay. So that being the case, they're looking to double the freestanders over and above ordinance. Okay. Just considering price changers right now, not the Murphy Express part, but just the price changers. In the ordinance, what would they be allowed on that entire canopy? How many price changers?
Well, they're only allowed a total of 3 signs. One of them can be freestanding, and then 2 can be on the wall.
Okay. Now, is there the fact that those cans are larger, at least the 2 of them, the fact that they are larger than the fascia of that canopy, is that also an ordinance violation?
I don't believe it is. What would be looked at is really if they exceed the 30% area, and as long as the top of the sign casing did not exceed the roof line of the structure.
Okay, do the signs as proposed, taking each fascia independently, do they exceed 30% of each plane?
The one that has the diesel and unleaded on the top right corner, that one is the only one that exceeds the 30% wall
And
coverage.
which way is that facing?
That faces Publix, if that helps.
That's facing Publix?
Correct.
Oh, because it exceeds it, because it's the narrow side.
Right, and so it's going to be on this end of the canopy, and Publix is in this direction. Whereas on the north end, they just have one price sign, south end, they have two price signs.
Any other questions, Mr. Metcalf?
I don't think so, thank you.
Okay. I would tend to agree with Mr. Metcalf that we've got somewhat of an excess on this one. And as you said, we've had to scale back on your other projects in the past. So we're asking really an excess on the square footage, coverage, and then also the number of signs. By 3 signs? So 3 signs more than
Yes, sir.
usual, and then the excess on the side that faces Publix.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Chair, entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, can I just have some more discussion with the board?
Yes. Proceed.
It seems to me that in this case that the small pylon is actually maybe less obtrusive than those big price changers on the canopies, just because that's like an 8-foot, and that's just my initial feel of that. Yeah, the second monument. Yeah, well, you got pylon then monument. That's right. It seems to me that that small monument is a bit less obtrusive than so many of the other price changers. And just for discussion with the board and opinions, I would think that some combination of 4 total signs would be, it still would exceed by 1, but these gas stations are a little bit different. Seems like that we've treated them maybe a little bit differently sometimes with price changers. So I'd like to have my colleagues' opinions about that, maybe some combination of 4 total signs, and let the applicant decide which ones, just for discussion.
Not to exceed the square footage requirement as well?
Yes.
Okay. I have a question too. The digital sign aspect of the price changer has not really come up. I guess the residential setback is met on this one?
Well, with this particular application and with other ones by Murphy Express, they're not using the digital LED signs. They're using the scrolling type, so it's not an issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I concur with Mr. Metcalf's comments. If you'll consider putting that in a form of a motion, we can call for.
Well, would it be better at this point if we ask the applicant how he feels about if the board were to say 4 signs?
Yeah, and Mr. Chairman, I guess the only thing I would say, just, for discussion purposes, as far as sign coverage of getting their message out, it seems like to me that, the pylon sign, it covers,
East and west.
yeah, east-west traffic well. The sign location on the canopy that faces to the north seems to cover that coming south on University.
Agree.
The sign location on the south-facing canopy seems to pick up, that angle versus the pylon sign, and doing away with the others because those seem excessive. It seems like to me that you could accomplish, advertising every angle with, and still be in compliance with the sign ordinance. So I throw that out as maybe an additional thought as opposed to going to 4 signs.
Would, instead of the one on the north canopy side, would you feel, I kind of share the same with the gentleman over here, that the university, the monument sign, although he did less intrusive, but also more visible maybe for the traffic, instead of that one on the north side, like being able to get the 2 freestanding signs and
To be honest with you, I'm
2
not
more.
sure what the value of the one that's on the west
I don't
elevation's for. Because you're really not gaining anything you're not already.
it's It's, as you work down the priority, it's the least of our priorities, but
Yeah.
we were asked by the marketing team to show.
Yeah,
it.
because anyone that's at the Publix had to get there somehow.
Well, its entrance is both from the Publix parking lot, correct? Your entrance, both of them share,
Correct, it's a shared access.
yeah. Okay. All right, once again, I think we're at a point we can make a decision on this matter. If somebody will make a motion.
I would move that they be allowed to have the main pylon, the small monument on the north side, and then the one fascia sign facing south, because that covers all directions. It covers east, west, and then northbound and southbound. Now, that would be one extra monument, so you'd have two monuments and then one fascia sign. That's my motion.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion with the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. I think you'll need to get with staff to get
You
clarification.
got that?
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we're at application 6102. Robertson,
The microphone upstairs.
okay.
You gonna do a little karaoke up there?
No, sir. This is the microphone that you can use to speak into if you want to talk about your application.
Here are the papers.
Okay, well, you just need to, your application is recommended for denial, and you just need to address the board and let them know why it should be approved.
Okay.
Can you do that?
We'll start with your name and address for the record.
Robertson, 355 Rylands.
Okay, your application's been recommended for denial. Can you tell us why we should consider otherwise, ma'am?
Well, because the VA wants my husband to be within 10 miles of a hospital, and I have that paper here,
Yeah.
because he's a quadriplegic.
Yeah, if you'll hold your mic up for us a little
And
bit.
he has to go into the hospital about once every 3 to 4 weeks. And we live in the country, far away from the hospitals, out in the Sims area. And also my son here is epileptic, and he has seizures at least twice a week. And I have the thing here for that. And I'm sick. I have diabetes and heart failure. Now, that main house that's in the front is not wide enough for a hoist and that low air pressure bed. So the BA wants to build him a handicap accessible unit in the back.
Okay, will the unit be strictly for like a bathroom and a bedroom, or will it have any kind of kitchen facilities?
No, it'll have, well, the house in the front doesn't have kitchen anyway. The one that's in the front,
Yes, ma'am.
the VA sends him those meals, but those meals are no good. We can't eat that trash. So the unit in the back, you don't have that picture there?
Yeah, I've seen the file.
Okay, it'll show a handicap bathroom, a handicapped kitchen, a handicapped bedroom, and they're willing to, my cousin owns Dwayne owns that lot that's adjacent there. And he's given us permission for the ambulance to come up in there, because he has to be transported by ambulance.
Will the current ramp be attached to this proposed addition, or will it remain?
They're gonna make him another ramp. They already got a ramp to that main house,
Yes, ma'am.
but you can't turn around in that thing. It's supposed to have a, oh gosh, it's supposed to have a
5-foot radius.
Like a landing for you to make the turn?
Yeah, and they didn't do that. So the VA is willing to build him another ramp, and they say something about putting an elevator there so that he can go up and get sun and exercise and a screen room or something, because he's supposed to be exposed to the sun. And right now, he can't be exposed to the sun. He's in the inside. They have a contract that they're getting with Kendrick's. But we have to get everything built and stuff before Kendrick's could come in there.
You were saying you lived in Sims, so is this property also yours?
That property there was mine, and I didn't know it until about 6 months ago, when I ran out of money trying to live in the hotel, and my husband could no longer get in the hotels because now he has no legs. And the hotel is not suited for them. So I started getting money from my sister, and she said, well, the old family home was left to you. So I went there and started trying to fix up the inside of that, and the VA came out and told me that that home is too narrow for the hoist, for the low pressure bed, because my husband is a big man. So he has to have an extra wide. Do you have any water?
We have water. Yes,
Can I have some
ma'am.
water, please?
We'll bring you some.
My tongue is getting tired.
We apologize. You're having to explain so much.
Well, it ain't. You see, my son came here when I hadn't seen him for 22 years, and I didn't know that he was sick and that he was having seizures.
Right. Well, how many bedrooms? You were saying that 3 of you are having health issues. How many bedrooms were this?
For that handicap thing, that's for my husband.
Right.
That's just a bedroom. It's supposed to be 6, thank you.
Is there a driveway to this proposed addition?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Metcalf?
Ma'am,
Yes.
a couple questions. On the site plan, it shows that there's also another building existing at the very back. What is that?
That's a storage thing.
Okay, just like a shed.
Right, but what we was using it for was for my husband. My husband gets 65 boxes of Diane, Neil. Oh, I forgot to tell you that.
Oh, okay, so it's a storage.
He does, not hemo, he does, yeah, but it's a certain one that go in your stomach.
Okay.
And you have to do it every night or every day.
Okay, now the house that's there now, okay, that you said that it was left to you. You said it has no kitchen in it?
No, that kitchen, no, we can't use that kitchen, and we need to redo
No, no,
that.
does it have a kitchen?
Yes.
Okay, because I heard you say it didn't have one, and I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, all right.
But you're not gonna use that kitchen?
No.
Okay, now, who's gonna live here? Is it gonna be you and your husband and your son?
Yeah, my son is gonna live in that front house.
Okay, and then you and your husband will be in the addition?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and this is not my business, but I'm curious, have you determined legally that you have title to that property?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
Well, and I'd like to say that's one of the conditions for the VA to fund it.
Okay, any other questions of the board? For Ms. Robertson?
Yeah, probably do have a question, but if I could think of what the question was, I'd ask.
All right, well, is there anyone, no, I have one question, because I believe there was, the current ramp, is it on your property, is it also on a neighbor's property?
I thought it was on our property.
So it doesn't exceed into a neighbor's?
No.
Okay, and you were saying
Now,
that,
you know there are 2 ramps there.
right, but the one the VA put in, I think extends further over it towards the adjacent lot. We're not sure if that was on your property or not.
I don't know. My cousin was there when they put it there.
Okay. All right, anyone else in the audience that's in favor of this application? Anyone in opposition today? Okay, any other questions of the board? Yes, Mr. Burrows. Make sure your mic's on, there you go.
In general, in reading from the staff's report, what concerns me is that the staff is saying that development of the property could be accomplished without the requirements for a variance. And my question to my lady here, have you considered any alternatives such as suggested by the city?
I don't understand a word you say, I'm gonna tell you. I mean, I don't wanna be disrespectful, but what are you asking me?
Sir, can you explain that to her, please?
He was asking if you would look at any other ways to modify the design of the house to be able to accommodate your needs.
Look any other way.
Well, for example, we didn't know that the kitchen in the main house was probably not going to be used, and instead we're using the new kitchen you're going to build. So there might be some room in the old house that could accommodate at least some, if not all, of the needs of your husband.
The house is too narrow.
We understand that. The question is whether or not, if you took out the kitchen in the existing house, could that space be used for other purposes?
Oh, it may be able to use to store those boxes, so those boxes won't be out there in the sun.
Okay, so the storage building's not really used for the boxes, they're used, you're having,
Yes, the storage, what you call it? The thing that's in the back,
yes, ma'am.
we was thinking of trying to, tear that down.
Okay,
But I don't know if we need a permit to do that or not, I don't know, see, I hadn't thought about that.
well, if you're gonna put a new kitchen in, then the other one would not be approved. You'd have to have it removed. You can't,
Oh, we're not using that kitchen, no way.
so if you used it for storage or some other purpose, that may
Oh,
help you.
yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that kitchen that's in there is actually a makeshift kitchen, it's not a real kitchen.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman?
yes.
Marie, do you know what the distance between the property line and the proposed building is? It doesn't show on the site plan.
On the front along Rylands?
No,
Or-
side.
I believe the side, it does meet the minimum setback, which is on the north side, which is just a little bit over 5 feet. I think the proposed addition is maybe 5.5 feet.
Well, I'm talking about from the, I guess that's the south side I'd be looking at.
On the south side, it's about 6.5 feet, I believe.
So there's no way to get to that existing building in the back.
The proposed addition, I know, barely meets the setback requirements for a lot this wide.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for staff. If you got rid of the storage building, what would be the site coverage at that time?
I do not have those numbers in front of me right now. I do know that the existing with the storage building is between 32 and 34% of the maximum allowed, that's 35%. So removing the storage building would definitely give her some more room to play with for site coverage.
Okay, well, that's a good idea. Any further questions?
I got a
Mr. Gold?
question for Bert, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, please, Mr.
Bert,
Burrows.
could I ask you a question? In your summation here for granting the variance or for denial, wouldn't the city be willing to assist her in showing her how she could comply with the variance?
We can provide some level of assistance, but, you know, we don't provide architectural services
Yeah, I
to
know.
the customer. So ultimately, it becomes the responsibility of her, and perhaps the Veterans Administration has a better ability to assist her on the design side. But we can show her what the limits would be, and then she could take that to the VA and they could design within those limits.
Okay. Any further
Okay,
questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Bert,
Yeah, let Ms. Robertson before she
Yeah.
forgets.
I don't know about all these ramifications of what you guys are talking about, but I do know this much. I've got a husband that got injured. I got a son that gave his life that got injured. And I really don't want to come here and get caught up in all this logistic ramification simply because I'm trying to get housing for my husband. Getting it city and everything, the VA told me what to do.
Yes, ma'am.
I went and I paid a person to draw up these plans, and I came down here to see if I can get an approval. Now, if I'm gonna get a denial, I need to know why.
Yes, ma'am. I think we're trying to help you at this point.
Well, then I didn't understand that, because I sure don't want to, I have to go to Biloxi, I have to go to Slidell. Right now, my husband is up there in Houston, and I should be with him, because my husband he has a memory problem. Now, please don't have me running all around.
Mr.
We-
Chairman.
If you're gonna help me, you help me.
Ms. Robertson, we appreciate everything that your
But
family's
I
done.
don't.
So we're trying to
All
see how
right.
this could be accomplished, but at the same time, we've got to be consistent. 'Cause
I
we
know
have-
we gotta follow your rules,
Yes, ma'am.
but in the Navy, we have a extenuating circumstance.
Well, I believe you've expressed the hardship with the property is the current house is too narrow from a design.
Well, if you want me to tear it back down, I tear it back down.
Yeah.
I just say that I'm not using that kitchen. That kitchen has plumbing in it, and we got a microwave in there. And my husband is not even supposed to be around a microwave.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Metcalf.
Bert? Would they, while they're doing their construction, if they did it all at the same time, would tearing that shed down require any additional permitting if it were just included in the plans for the, because if the VA is gonna, well, not, whatever contractor is gonna build it, they have to submit for a permit.
They'll have to apply for a permit to build the new construction, and typically, yes, you would need a permit to take down the shed.
But that can be done
At the same time.
within the same thing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I got a question about that. As a homeowner can I apply for the permit?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Any further questions? Okay. Just knowing that the older style of these homes and way the support beams are, I could see that having narrow hallways would be hardship for some of the equipment that's necessary for this kind of care. And I can see why the VA's effort is to just build a new structure to accommodate what they need. It's much easier than trying to retrofit an older home. The site coverage, I would agree that maybe removing the existing building on the back that's really of no value will reduce the site coverage, and then make it a condition to remove the existing kitchen, which is not serviceable from what Ms. Robertson said, would accommodate two of the primary concerns. Chair, will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Let me, before, Adam, hold on.
Yes.
I'm not sure if removing the existing kitchen is really something that's
I don't think so.
within our jurisdiction. All we're talking about is site coverage. Now, we've got building codes. If she gets our approval and they submit plans, all that's going to come before the permitting and building codes, but we don't need to be getting involved in
The use of,
the design interior of a house.
It's like two residents.
Oh,
We're
they're
looking at it
actually-
from a design standpoint.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Now you see
I thought you were talking about building code issues, because we'd have two kitchens in one residence. Okay,
Yeah, it's like
I'm
having an
sorry.
apartment.
Good point, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I didn't understand that they were adding the
Mr.
kitchen in the second part. That makes sense.
Mr. Chairman, I have a quick question.
Yes. Let's conclude after this, if we don't mind.
Should we expand the site coverage somewhat?
Well, I think that will be some of the
Okay, I mean,
consideration.
maybe not to 46, but 38 or 40, I mean, to pick a number that we could,
Well, we don't know what the size of the ancillary structure is. So
okay.
you've got the file down there.
It's not a drawing, it shows.
I was just going to say minus the ancillary structure.
And then that would suffice for your motion,
Yeah,
approve the additional
it doesn't.
building subject to removal of
Yeah, I don't see anything that shows the specific
the
dimensions.
percentage will be,
Right.
you know, it'll be between 35 and 46.
right.
Okay. All right. Once
Okay.
again, Chair, entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I think that the applicant has demonstrated a hardship in this case, in that the definition of the hardship is not being able to use it as it currently is. And so I think she's done that. My motion is to approve the construction of the proposed building with the condition that at the time of construction, that the shed or the outbuilding, whatever, comes down as well.
Second.
Okay, hold on. What about the answer, or the second kitchen?
I'm not including that in my motion. I think that's their business.
Okay, I have a motion to approve with the condition that they remove the ancillary building. And that would reduce the overall site coverage, but still allow them to exceed the current requirements. I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Thank you for your time.
Bert, can you please try to explain to her? Thank you.
Okay, we're on application 6103. James Donald Guy. And your name and address for the record, please?
James Donald Guy, I go by Don, 3917 McGregor Court, Mobile, Alabama, 36608.
Okay, your application, if I remember right, is recommended for approval. Have you seen the conditions?
I'm sorry.
Have you seen the staff's recommendations?
Yes,
Okay, are you in agreement with those?
yes.
Okay. All right. Is there this is a matter of formality. Anyone in the audience in favor? Anyone in opposition today? Okay. Once again, the staff recommends approval. Any questions of the board before I call for a motion? Okay. Chair, entertain a motion. Once again, staff recommends approval.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion for approval, subject to staff recommendations.
Okay, a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you. And thank you very much for what you do.
Oh, thank you for your patience. All right, we're at application 6104, David M. Schumer. I hope I said it correctly.
Yeah, David Schumer, Barton Schumer Engineering, 4373 Downtown or Loop South.
And Mr. Schumer, before you start, I want to make a correction. After the staff report was prepared, I did some additional research regarding the right-of-way width here of US Highway 90. And although the major street plan that's been adopted by the Mobile City Planning Commission says that Highway 90 would need to have a 250-foot wide right-of-way to allow for future expansion, AlDOT itself currently has a 120-foot wide right-of-way here, and they do not anticipate needing any additional right-of-way. So the comment that we staff put in the report regarding the possible widening can be, I guess, just not paid attention to, because as we're going through the process of trying to amend the major street plan, we are going to actually recommend reducing from 250 down to 120 to be more in line with what AlDOT currently has there.
Okay, thank you. All right, as I'm sure you've seen, the staff recommended for denial, so you want to tell us why you think we ought to consider otherwise?
And the main consideration is drainage and runoff in this area. This site does drain away and slopes away from US 90, so the DOT will not allow us to drain towards the right-of-way, which means we have higher restrictions on what we're allowed to discharge, which means usually a larger detention pond, so adding gravel. And if we use, of course, aggregate, we could actually provide some level of storage in the aggregate. We also have to recreate sheet flow, which is another step to discharge to an adjacent property. If this were not in a flood zone, we could build the site up and have a traditional detention pond where the water flows into a pond or into pipes and then discharges, but the city does not, and FEMA does not allow any fill to be placed in a flood zone. So we're not allowed to bring the site up, and we can't go down because it won't allow us to discharge. So any of the detention methods will need additional percolation to allow it to seep into the ground to try to reduce the runoff to the greatest extent possible. The DOT requires a full turnout paved, and we are offset significantly from the DOT, and it is an upslope towards the road, so there should not be any traffic of rocks up the side. And if gravel is allowed, the aggregate will be bounded either by railroad ties or some sort of curb to be able to maintain its functionality, because it'll probably be a 3 or 4 inch depth across the whole parking to allow for maximum percolation and storage. There's certain types of rocks that I would propose for this site that allow up to like 40% void space in the stone. It's the same kind of stone that they use underneath pervious pavers and inside chamber systems to promote, more infiltration on sites.
What's going in I guess that's a fenced area to walk or take the animals?
Yes, this is the main building. The large building is the main, vet with the medical facilities. The small building behind it, which is going to have a gable roof that connects the two buildings, so from an aerial it would look like one building, is mostly separated for a sound, because the kennels make quite a bit of noise. And addition, if she has a worker that tends to the animals after hours, they wouldn't have to go into the primary building. She could even give them a separate key if, assuming she doesn't hire trustworthy people to serve. That was an additional reason for the second building. If need, that was a whole different issue that was brought up with the two structures on a site, but it is the same roof structure. It's going to be trusses all the way up, and then it's going to widen out to the larger structure.
Is this the required number of parking spaces? Is that why we have so much parking on this?
I think it actually exceeds the number of parking spaces required, but I don't have the square footage of the building in front of me.
Okay.
But it would be a 1 to 300 ratio.
I was just wondering whether or not, if we had to put a retention pond where it says near the 10-inch oak, if they lost some of that parking to allow a retention would be, because it does slope that way, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, but the issue is it does not slope very drastically. It's a fairly
But you're trying
flat
to carry-
lot.
But you're trying to capture what's on, from the driveway.
Yes, yeah, I would
From the
like,
park.
ideally, we would catch as much as we can on the pavement and then have a small retention pond.
Or you could do even one underground if you had to.
Well, it would have to perk, but we're in a flood zone, so it's gonna have a higher water table.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah. 15 parking spaces are being provided, only 11 are required.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
what flood zone is it in?
it's a AE flood
Okay,
zone.
so below the 100-year?
Yes,
Okay, so what is the elevation of the site at the point where the building is currently?
I don't remember the exact elevations, but the building will have to be elevated to be above.
Right, it's gonna have to be a foot above, so it'll have to be, what, 13 feet or
Yeah,
whatever?
the building's, it's close. I think, if I'm remembering right, I think 55 is the, about where the building is, and I think the flood zone is like 55 or 56. So the building is not going to be like excessively out of the ground. It's going to be a crawl space with flood vents, and it'll probably be 2 feet, 2 or 2.5 feet out of the
And
ground.
are you also dealing with, since you have those issues, you can't make your pond still has to drain?
It's got to drain. It would have to be a true retention pond, and with a high water table, and the idea is
So
to
it'd be a
retain.
retention pond, not a detention pond?
Correct.
Because
It would
doesn't
be-
outflow as what, because,
It would be a retention pond with a level berm, so that during extreme rains, it would overtop in a sheet flow manner that mimics what's flowing today.
okay, and so there's no proposed retention or detention area, or just minimal?
No, it would be, it's going to be extremely difficult to have a detention like normal, because we can't bring fill in, and we can't
Well, it
go
actually
down.
looks like that lower corner is actually a little bit higher. You got 54 elevation right at the end of the building, and then it comes up to 55.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
believe 56 or in that area is the flood elevation. But it's a tricky site to work with, and we're just trying to, gravel would allow us storage in that parking surface to have, some kind of infiltration in the parking to reduce the size of a retention pond.
Does engineering concur with that, or have they gotten that far?
Engineering has not seen any calculations or anything on this, so I have no
But
idea
the
if it'll work
but the
that way.
premise,
I did not look at the flood zone. Engineering, the city does allow for fill in flood zones. It does allow for fill in flood zones. If the applicant does his due diligence and check the flood studies or provide compensation on site. So there is an allowance for that.
but as far as the calculation for the storage in the yard, you do allow for that to some degree, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Some degree.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? There's the site plan. Okay.
So if I'm, Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Davis.
understanding engineering correctly, what the applicant is proposing to do on his own to compensate for what its need is, which is when it's within regulations of the city, right?
Yeah, what he's proposing is to provide, he has to provide detention on site.
Yes.
Instead of providing your typical detention pond where all the water drains to and it comes through pipes to it, he's saying he doesn't have enough room for all that, so he's proposing to use his gravel parking area, some of that as storage, and then drain it off somehow from the property.
Yes.
We're in concert, right?
Yeah, and the couple kickers are with draining to an adjacent private property, the detention requirements are higher because you don't, just for, everybody's protection, you have to, it's the 2-year pre-existing, which is the 1984, which I don't believe this site may have been cleared in 1984, but it's definitely didn't have pavement on it. And then we have to release at the 100-year storm at that 2-year pre-development rate in a sheet flow. So we can't have a detention pond with a pipe discharge that concentrates like a water hose onto your adjacent property. So we have to have some kind of level discharge. And so the plan will be to have the gravel that stores some with, either concrete or railroad tie berm draining towards the kennel run area, fenced in area in the back, which will be depressed with a level berm that wraps around that, we'll call it the east corner, the southeast corner, to allow it to mimic the existing flows.
Engineering loves that idea.
Pardon?
Engineering loves that idea,
Loves it, okay.
if they can make it work.
Okay, good.
Oh,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
you do like that plan?
It's something that could work, yeah,
Okay,
I'm saying it could work.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I guess what I'm trying to wrestle with, and you're the applicant, but you are the engineer. My question is, can the site be developed per code? Taking the aggregate services out of there, and with the detention and the release rate, can it be done? Or is it just a hell of a lot easier to do it this way?
It is easier to do it this way. I have not run the calculations, but adding that much impervious surface on the site, I would still have to hold the water
I understand,
within the
but can it be
pavement
done?
area.
Have you done, from an engineering standpoint, have you drawn it that way and run your calculations?
I have not gone that detailed because I wanted to determine if we could do it in a much more environmentally friendly and easier way. That I've done a system similar to this in the past, and it has worked.
In the city?
In the city, yes.
Where was that?
Country Club. A residence that,
In residential property?
it was a residence, but it was in the country club. So it was probably less
Yeah, but
impact than,
there's
it was probably more
different, yeah,
impact
but there's
than this.
different regulations with that. They don't have
No,
the
not
detention.
in the city. It's the same it's the different, I didn't have to get a variance for the gravel parking, but the detention requirements are the same. And we did use gravel driveway that was allowed in residential to aid in storage, and then we have a retention pond
Okay,
that
thank
perks
you.
it out, and it overtops on the level berm.
Okay, any further questions? Bert, you said that they've got 15 spaces allocated, they could live with 11?
Well, I'm saying that the ordinance requires a minimum of 11. They are providing 15.
Right.
They may need 15, depends on their success.
Okay. I tend to question whether or not this could be worked within the normal requirements as well. I can see aggregate material for areas that have heavy equipment, but we tend not to support it for just a traditional type business. And yeah, there's probably several out there that have it already, and they were prior to the annexation. So, anyway, once again, anyone in the audience in favor or in opposition that's here today? Okay. Any further discussion of the board?
Mr. Chair, I got one quick question.
Yes.
I was having trouble determining geographically where that site is? Is that site west of Paget Switch?
It is 800 feet from the city limits, about.
I know that,
I can't, is
but I'm
Paget
just-
Switch, I think it is east of Paget Switch, because I believe Paget Switch 90 is in the county.
Okay, all right.
There's a creek, and I apologize, I can't remember the name. There's like a stream or a creek literally just to the east of this location, and the city limits are just to the west.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, Chair entertain a motion. Sorry, I'm making noise up here. All right, we're being asked to look at strictly a surface variance. No other variance requests, correct? And I remember that if we were to grant it, there was some requirements for, I guess curbing and all that kind of stuff. Yes.
Was there anything specific, Bert or Marie, about the handicap space? Was that going to be asphalt or concrete?
I believe it is going to be paved so that the
The
parking.
full space, not just the landing?
That's correct. The parking space and the landing area up to the ramp into the building would be surfaced.
It's listed in the site plans as concrete.
Would it be both spaces or just, because,
It would just be the parking space itself and the striped area next to
okay,
it.
so it'd be just the handicap spot, not
Yes,
the one
sir.
next to it?
Yeah, the site would have to meet all of the handicap ADA requirements, so your 10-foot wide, 20-foot long parking spot
And
with
see, I can
your
see that
landing.
as a problem, if you're gonna have asphalt for one parking strip and one parking space, and then aggregate next to it,
It'll be concrete, it won't be asphalt, it'll be.
whatever.
Okay.
And again, maybe too picky, but it just seems like if the site were approved in general for the aggregate, it would seem to make sense that those two spaces in the front, both the regular and the handicap, be concrete. Because you're gonna have spillover, right, Bert?
Yeah, over onto the handicap.
Yeah, onto the handicap spot.
Aggregate will shift,
Yeah.
but, I mean, they can make that as part of their maintenance plan.
And the landing will be on the opposite side
I
of
understand.
the other.
Okay. Any further questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Just a comment, and I'm looking for my, if you look at the engineering comments, my letter A says that the handicap parking spaces and the vehicular access to and from them must be paved, asphalt, or concrete. That was my recommendation if the board chose to approve it.
Yeah, the site plans reflect that
Okay.
as submitted.
But but what I'm saying is the whole drive up
Okay.
all the way to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there will be no aggregate from the
Okay.
drive to the spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if that's the case, I would not have two isolated spaces of aggregate on an island.
Yeah, I would.
Surrounded
I
by-
think that's Mr. Metcalf's point.
I didn't see, did you see that?
Does that need to be specified as far as how much of it would be asphalt, or that would be up to engineering?
I'd say coordination with engineering. All right. Once again, I'm kind of reluctant to vote in favor because I think there is possibilities to make this work with current code, but I'm all for trying to keep stormwater on site whenever possible, and reduce the impact. Of course, I've been told the aggregate, your percentage of perk is very minimal, so I'm not sure how much other than you're just gonna run it off to your fenced-in, dog walk area.
It'll drain towards that, but the
But you
course
could-
aggregate, I mean, they have to keep it clean. There's maintenance with any kind of aggregate or non-paved surface,
Right.
which is probably the source of the original regulation. But you do get a substantial, it would not be a packed lime like a base for a road base. This would be the large, relative
Yeah.
that you typically in a residential driveway that they have that does have the surface still appears and feels dry.
One other comment I need to make, we had not necessarily similar, but we had the retif oil and fuel, which we denied. That one was overturned, but that was more to do with use, I believe, than it was to do with the surface material.
They had just a small surface area where they wanted aggregate, and that was where the trucks were exiting the building.
And the sites are totally different, so as we have to look at each application on its own merits. All right, once again, Chair entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the application subject to engineering comments.
Okay, I have a motion to approve, subject to engineering comments. Any further discussion, comments? Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Okay, I have one opposed, and we have the 5 necessary to approve. All right, your motion carries.
Thank you.
All right. We'll move on to the next application, 6106. Your name and address, please, for the record.
My name is Dirk Young. I'm worship minister at First Church of the Nazarene at 669 Azalea Road, 36609.
And we've seen you all once before. if I
Yes, sir,
remember
you
right.
have.
It's been a little while.
It has been, a couple of years, actually.
Okay, yours is still recommended for denial. Tell us why we ought to reconsider this time.
So what I'll do, if you will, we'll draw from staff recommendations to try to give justification on why we believe we should be granted the variance. First of all, Mobile First Church is approaching 90 years old in the city of Mobile, and we've been at our present location since the early 70s. We've seen growth in our area, and we continue to try to promote what churches do, and that's the good word, and to appeal to the community and offer services to the community and services and help. So 2 years ago, we came and approached the board about a variance to replace our existing sign, which in the application, if you've seen that, has been damaged. It is old, probably 15 years old. It's showing wear and tear. So we thought that we would like to put this type of sign with a digital message board, if you will, in order to tell more about what we have. So we understand the buffer. We understand the 300-foot setback. There's only one residence that falls in that 300-foot setback, and it is directly across the street. As you all know, churches by default fall into R1, which means if you follow the rule of the ordinance, then we're putting a sign on an R1 residentially zoned property. So the church property, all of the property to the, let's see, that's the south of that, is owned by the church as well. That property is zoned R1. The church, of course, across the street is zoned R1. If you take all of that into consideration, we only have one residence, one dwelling, that is within that 300-foot barrier. We have a letter from the occupant of that says he is in favor of that. So that is the first part of that. Second part is that the staff said they didn't feel like that would be a hardship for us to replace our sign with a sign that has the type of message board that we have. We are a growing congregation. We have lots of activities going on that we want to tell the community about. A sign, message board like we have now would sometimes require that to be changed multiple times a day because you may have a morning event and then an evening event. And this is outside of our normal worship services that we have on Sundays and Wednesdays. We have good things going on that we want to tell the community about. So given that, we do feel like it's a hardship that we would like to do this to reach to the community. And then again, on the third point was light intrusion. We all know how good technology is today. And even your staff has noted that in the application that we've put, we have the ability to dim it at a certain time of day. We have the ability to shut it off at a certain time of day, if the board deems that's necessary. We feel like this is, first of all, we have to replace the sign we have now. But we feel like this better helps us. We are an anchor in the community. We are continually reaching to the community with events and services that we have, and would like the board's passing of our variance request.
How far is the sign, or the proposed sign from the residence? If you look at the pictures too, I see what they were saying. I don't remember this on the first time, but I mean, there's substantial green space between the actual residence and the street.
That is correct.
Here, I'll pass this file around, let everybody else look at it.
Sure.
Your name and address for the record.
Spencer Baggett, I'm the pastor of the First Church of the Nazarene there, 669 Azalea Road. The idea of hardship, I understand that's really what you're looking for to approve a variance, and we're not a business. We're not looking to be profiting from the community. We're really trying to bless, and we offer so many services in the community. We have free clothes in the fall. We distribute food around Thanksgiving. We had hundreds of man hours put in at Fondy Elementary School last summer with teenagers from around the southern half of Alabama, and we do so many things in the community. That's a blip on the radar of what we would like to let people know what they could participate in as well. They can be blessed. They can bless others. As Mr. Young said, we've been in the community a long time, and we just want to continue to do good. I could propose on a small level for us a bit of a hardship. We do have a daycare and learning center behind the facility. We wanted to put up a secondary sign for that facility years ago, and it's not permitted to have a secondary sign. So we have mediocre signage, a square piece of wood, and we have no way to let the community. We provide that service. So that's a bit of a hardship, and that's been in the community for 30 years, very well known for providing a great service in that way. But and this is perhaps not what you're looking for, but I would say the hardship is really on the community. They could be blessed in so many more ways if they knew better the opportunities that we have to serve them, and that they could participate in blessing others, really. I know that's perhaps not as logical and maybe a little more from a faith perspective, but yeah, I guess that's...
But the issue we run into is we have to be consistent with the code, and we have to find the hardship supports
Sure.
the variance.
And
as stated before, we denied this once. So why, we have to think through why would we reconsider that at this point?
And beyond the hardship is really, I understand and completely agree with the spirit of the code. But as Mr. Young has tried to state, between Airport and Cottage Hill on Azalea Road, there are two driveways that connect. One of them is across the street from us, and the other is over 1,000 feet. It's simply not really a residential area as the zoning would suggest just from a plot map. Our neighbors to the north are businesses. The resident across the street has thick woods, and he's got a good setback for the home and is in favor. We have a handwritten note from Mr. Doyle. But it's just, you see R1 because of church property, and then there are businesses on the other side. So there's, in the spirit of the code, I don't think that everything is really being honored as it would be if it were a real residential area. Just because of zoning, the property that exists is not residential.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Sir, I think what the chairman was asking you is what has changed between then and now?
I was hoping our case, our better explanation of honoring
But nothing
the
else
spirit of the code.
has changed. You still want the
Well,
same type of sign at the same place?
Well, and I don't know if we expressed this, but
Yes or no?
I don't guess much has changed.
Okay.
Well, I think the only thing I can say that's changed is this time they did get a letter from the resident, which
Okay,
is,
thank you.
has,
And
and you've stated that they're willing to have a dimming or turning it off in the evenings,
That is correct.
which is something we didn't hear before.
The current sign is on a timer, and we could honor the same hours. We could even measure and we would be willing the output of the light from the fluorescent sign, and we could set the lumens at the same.
What current sign are you referring to?
The current sign we have is just fluorescent tubes inside.
Oh, I see.
And
Okay.
we could even determine not to exceed the current light. We would be willing to comply with any recommendation.
Okay. Question for staff. Last month, or several months now, the Christ United facility, we had a similar application. They were replacing a similar, but it was already an electronic sign of some. What was the setback on it? It was fairly close.
I think the measurement from the sign to the back side of the residentially zoned property that actually had a house on it was probably about 292 feet.
Yeah, it was fairly
something
close
like
to
that.
the 300. Plus had a wall, if I remember right.
There was a wall along the street, and then
Yeah.
the house wasn't even facing the sign.
Right.
In this case, staff did not put in the report how far the sign would be from the residence, but in the narrative that the applicant provided, I believe they said it was 342 feet from the sign to the physical structure of the house. So, and we know that the Azalea Road right-of-way would be 80 to 100 feet wide just on its own.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
members of the board, I think that this applicant, church, group, pastor, parishioners are very intentional and determined. One of the things that have struck me is that the hardship would be more on the community than it would be on the church because of what they are trying to bless the community with. I feel that they're coming back and going against the grain, so to speak. Shows a lot of willingness to conform in any way that we can work with them to do what they feel that they are being led by the Spirit to do. With that, Mr. Chairman, if you're prepared to receive a motion, I'd like to offer one that we
But
will
before-
consider.
Before you do, a thought I had after your last visit was, have you considered moving the sign back towards the actual structure
And
site?
we certainly can do that if the board recommends that. We're happy to do that. That is a large lawn.
Right. I don't know how much of the visibility you lose because of the traffic on that. The other hardship I could see with that area is, I travel it all the time, is there is fairly high-speed traffic through there.
Yes.
So any visibility you're going to catch is very limited.
We would appreciate, being able to leave it there, but certainly, Mr. Gass, upon recommendation, we could certainly consider that.
Any other comments or concerns?
I've got a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Bert, I guess thinking through the line of thought with regards to the existing house being set back, but that could change, correct? And so thinking through kind of the spirit of this ordinance when it was put into place was protecting residents from this, from these signs that I guess can be obtrusive. However, would that change if, say they were granted this variance, put the sign in, somebody bought that property, hypothetically redeveloped it and put a house closer to the street, so instead of being 320 feet or 40 feet or whatever, they're, 200 feet. I mean, would that change kind of the because then they went in eyes wide open, I guess. I'm just kind of thinking through, we're making a potential decision based on what it is now, but that could change.
Well, and that's the case with any site for any variance. And there is a possibility that that can happen, but given the location of the residents across the street between existing commercial uses to the west, a religious facility on the east, it may be unlikely that that one property would be redeveloped into another single-family residence. And given that the orientation of the sign is going to be facing along Azalea Road rather than facing across the street towards the residents, you know, that along with the fact that the standard dimming requirements to accommodate for nighttime lighting situations would probably minimize the impact on current and even future residential structures that could occur across the street.
Any further comments, questions of the board? Okay. Well, I think a couple things have been mentioned today which were probably would have been more beneficial a couple of years ago. One is getting the resident to either agree or disagree. The hardship to me, part of it is too the speed at which people travel that area. I could see that you might want to move it back some, that you have that luxury, which most applicants don't. And if you were to set it to where it turns itself to a low light setting or off, a static screen after hours would be probably helpful as well, and the orientation.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I'll throw that out there for the board to consider. Chair, entertain a motion.
I'd like to take that as a motion from the chair, and I would like to second it with those conditions that you've outlined.
It's, what'd you say, Bert? It's 320, approximately 325 feet from the residence?
That is what was mentioned by the narrative
You've got
they
an 80
provided.
How much of a setback from the easement?
From the
Right-of-way?
right-of-way, typically a sign has to be a minimum of 18 inches. And they may wish to set it back a little bit more than the existing sign to perhaps reduce any future run-ins with vehicles coming off of Azalea Road.
Yeah,
But,
that was my other thought, was that
you know,
it's a target at the moment.
it could be, and it may be if they begin the new sign on the furthest part of the existing sign and just use the existing sign as the distance of setback and start there, maybe.
Understood.
Okay. With those hardships that I've expressed, I'll make a motion to approve that you move it back to the edge of the current profile, that you set it to where it goes to a static in the, after dark.
Okay.
The profile at no way faces the residence, and that it meets all other codes and requirements.
Absolutely.
Second.
Have a second? Mr. Chairman? Yes, sir. Mr. Metcalf?
Just as a, since we have been very careful about these, it may be wise for us to just kind of state for the record here some of the reasons why that this, we're doing this, and if I may.
I agree.
If I may, I can lay some out and you
Please,
can add.
and I'll add to that.
Okay. Number one is that the orientation of the sign is opposite from the residential property in question.
Correct.
Okay, so it's just for vehicular traffic, not facing a house, number
Yes, sir.
one. Number two is that the only other residential property that is, that affects this, that the structure far exceeds the 300-foot minimum of the city by 40 some odd feet. You're going to add another 8 feet to it, let's say, so 48 feet. So that's two right there, and also with the proximity of the other, all other properties around it, well, the majority of them being commercial in nature.
Correct.
So,
And
please,
that there's a green space of substantial amount or density that buffers this property, the residential, from the actual roadway and from the sign.
right, so if this comes up again, we can know what we've done and why.
Now, I have one other comment. Since we're talking about this, you were saying that you have a little daycare sign?
Yes, sir.
Can you not put information on this that references the daycare?
Absolutely.
That you
Absolutely.
remove your
That's-
little stand-up
That is
daycare
correct.
sign as
That is-
well?
That is part of the spirit of this, is that we will utilize this for the daycare also.
Okay, so that little tent sign or whatever you call it.
Goes away.
Goes away, okay. So we've actually improved some of the conditions. All right, I have a
Okay.
motion and a second. Any
So does that motion need to be amended?
I'm amending it
Okay.
to include that. And do you
Second. Yes.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
All right, that was it for the day. The other application was withdrawn, and therefore we have no other business. Anything for the record? Mr. Anderson? No, sir. All right, Chair entertain a motion to conclude.
Good job.
Yeah.